Welcome to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show, the show where we feature tech companies operating across Asia, talking about their businesses and solutions and how they make a difference to their customers. Now, today our conversation is with Julian Quinn, Senior Vice President Asia Pacific and Japan at Alteryx. Alteryx is a leader in self-service data science and analytics. Now, Julian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian.
Now, Julian, could you start by giving us an overview of Alteryx and your history?
Absolutely. So we're a company that's been in business for 25 years leading. We are both a market creator in the first place in terms of data and analytics. And today, we're very proud of being a market leader globally as a company. And, what we do is we work with some of, organizations, whether very large, small or medium enterprises across the globe, and particularly in the Asia Pacific region, on their most complex data management challenges. And ultimately, we want to empower everyone in the organization to transform data into a breakthrough and provide their organization with an unfair competitive advantage. I mean, that's what we seek to do. So that's what we're about as a company. We've got a very large footprint in Asia. We have over 8,000 customers globally, of which there are nearly 2,000 in the Asia Pacific region. We're relatively new to Asia, but we've moved very fast. And of course, we're headquartered in Singapore, but we have operations in Australia, New Zealand, through to Hong Kong. We're opening up in India at the moment. And then, of course, we have entities in Japan as well. So we have a fairly large girth across the region, but very focused about what we do. And obviously, we're very proud of the customers that we work with day in and day out.
And Julian, could you give us a snapshot of your product and service offerings?
Yeah, so in essence, what we do is we provide a unified platform, and it's really end-to-end. But most importantly, it's human-centric. And when we say that, what we mean it is low-code, code-free, code-friendly. So you don't have to be a mathematician, somebody that's expert in statistics, to make sense of the data in your organization. This is applicable to anybody in any role in business. So you can be in the front office, you could be in the back office, you can be in the line of business, you could be in IT, you could be in the transformation side of the business, or you could be running the business. And the point is that anybody is empowered to use the data and harness that into workflows. And what we typically do is we deal with the first mile of the analytics journey right the way through to the last mile. So, when you think about, analytics, the continuum is descriptive, and that's typically backward looking. It's what happened. Then diagnostic analytics, which is why did it happen? But the future is all about prescriptive and predictive analytics. So it covers that full continuum. It's got automated building blocks in there, and you can start the analytics journey anywhere you want in the platform. And the beautiful thing is, we know there's an acute shortage of data scientists. When you've got, I think it's 2.5 quintillion bits of data today, with ever increasing complexity, there aren't enough data scientists. And just to get a data science model into production can take 8 months. And by then the business has already changed.
It's changed.
Yeah, it's changed. So it puts it right into the heart and of the people in the business themselves. And whether you're a frontline worker or whether you're in HR or marketing or whatever the function might be, that's what we do.
Okay, now Julian, you mentioned you have around 2,000 customers in the Asia Pacific region in terms of your footprint. Which industries seem to use your products more than others?
Well, I mean, I suppose the leading indicators for us in terms of big data and digital transformation would be, I don't think there'd be any surprise here, but it's predominantly in the banking, the FSI sector, where they're going through entire digital platforms, and you see that with DBS and the other banking, the big banks, of course, across Asia, and then through to the government itself, particularly those have embraced analytics in a very fundamental way to give them far more resiliency during the pandemic that we're currently in and remain in. But also the telecommunications sector. We work extensively with the retail and transportation companies and logistics. And then, of course, the healthcare sector. And, we can work, as you would expect, analytics plays a huge part in sort of chronic disease prevention and management, and looking at the social demographic around that, who are the most vulnerable, and that's where analytics reigns supreme in being able to provide that and absorb huge amounts of data geopolitically, and absorb that in and makes meaning out of data. That's fundamentally what we do.
Julian, could you then share some customer stories on how customers have used your products and really achieved significant outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll give you one example. There's one of the leading asset infrastructure banks in Australia. They're well known. I mean, they're a global organization, and there's a regulatory body there called APRA, which tests the banking sector, in terms of their solvency, their ability to service loans, and all of those kind of things. And what typically would take that bank globally to provide the reporting back to APRA, the regulatory body, would take them months. It now takes them less than a day. And that's the power of the transformation that we can drive. But, another example in the banking sector, of course, is patterns and recognition and the correlation of things are very important, particularly as it relates to fraud detection. So it could be the Australian, Securities and Crime Exchange that are looking for that. And when you've got, again, lots of volume of data, you need to be able to ingest that. You need to obviously clean the data and make sure that it's pure and can be relied upon, just as much as this pure water I'm drinking now. And then once you've transformed it, you then need to be able to take that as a data source and extrapolate on that data and make sense of the data itself. So there's another example of what we do. But a third example would be in the automotive industry in Honda Corporation, for example. They have the Intel Savvy, the Intel navigation system as part of their cars that they market and sell globally. And they provide telemetry into councils and municipal bodies around congestion areas, which is extremely important when it comes to providing emergency services. But then they also provide a huge amount of data back to the insurance companies around driving behavior and patterns. So it goes way beyond just providing navigation data, but looking at location, spatial data, all of those different types. And we can work with any data, multiple different data sources. I mean, to give you an idea, an organization I think has 26 data sources on average per month, and then something like 30 different data types. And you multiply that by all the companies in Asia, and it's a huge amount of data. But they're just three very brief examples. And then, of course, working with government to ensure that they do a much more effective job of service delivery. And most importantly, to work with businesses and enterprises around providing opportunities for those unfortunate people that have been furloughed. And you mentioned our Spark ED program. That's part and parcel of it as well, to make sure we can provide people with the skills and expertise that's needed in this new world so that they can actually go back and gain useful employment again.
So I want to zoom out a little bit and view analytics and data really from a more macro lens. And could you perhaps share some of the differences between a data-rich and a data-driven organization?
Yes. Yeah, Brian, that's a really good question. Firstly, many organizations are data rich to the point that, one of the Accenture studies indicates that 97% of data is actually idle. So you've got this absolutely unbelievable subterranean oil well which you're not refining and you're not taking advantage of it. The difference between the two, a data-driven organization, firstly, it puts data at the heart of its decision-making. So it doesn't rely on judgment, but the executives at all levels in the organization look and eyeball data, they converse with data, they challenge the data, they argue with it, and they argue in context around data. And that then allows them to arrive at the best decision. But more than that, with the data, and we talked about the different data sources that are coming in and raw data and transforming that, but they curate the data in such a way that it's there and aligned to the business objectives. So for example, if they want to transform and continue to service all facets of the customer, from initial engagement to servicing that customer, they're looking at the curation of that data in a way that says that is a priority for the business. And we need to serve up that data to all parts of the business so that they can make sure that we transform to meet the needs of our customers going forward. So that's one of the differences. And I think one of the third and most important differences, and we talk a lot about, it's the technology piece, of course, which is analytics and data science and machine learning, which is what we do. But it has to be married with process, because automation is fundamental, together with the people side. And you cannot underestimate the people side of the business. And those that are data-driven do a really good job of making sure that their team, when they come on board, they're not just onboarded in relation to, the HR system, expense management, how to submit leave, or facets of, the ERP system that you're running or the CRM system, but they onboard people around the importance of data and how that's an important driver in the business itself. So they start empowering people to work with data.
And Julian, that's a culture. That's a culture shift.
It's a big cultural shift.
Because essentially then to use people like Alteryx well with your, and the whole idea, and you mentioned earlier in your interview, it's essentially democratizing data and analytics across the organization. Okay? So then in order to do that, you need, as you said, empower employees to do so. You also then have to take a one step further before that and actually upskill your employees culturally, as well as from a skill set basis, basically to even understand what to look for and how to use your tools.
That's exactly right. And you mentioned democratization of data, and it's not just about devolving the data. And of course, you've got to do that with security and governance. I mean, that's really important, and you have to have a data strategy. But the genie is well and truly out of the lamp in relation to self-service. And it's the only way you can scale analytics, is you've got to put it into the hands of people. And the advantage of solutions like ours is that it is code-free and it's code-friendly. So you don't have to be a data scientist. You can ingest a data science model into an Alteryx workflow. You can actually augment it with an Alteryx workflow, and somebody in the business can then just shunt it back up into a data science model and vice versa. So you can do all of that. But most importantly, it does allow you with drag and drop to actually build your workflows very, very quickly. And if you're conversant in Excel or you are accustomed to using PowerPoint, you'll be able to use Alteryx. And one of our best examples of this is if you talk to the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries and Environment, which is one of the biggest agencies in Australia, one of their top analysts used to be a panel beater in the automotive industry. When you crash your car, you go to a panel beater.
That's so interesting. How did he make the transition from panel beater and putting back together cars that have been involved in an accident into being their top data scientist?
Yeah, because again, he got onto the Alteryx platform and realized that it's very easy to use, and and it's very intuitive, and it guides you through aspects of building your models, and then you can run them in real time and all those things. And that's how easy it is to use the solution. Our global head of data and analytics, Alan Jacobson, one of the demonstrations he always uses with any of our customers, even the very largest ones, whether it be Standard Chartered Bank or HSBC Bank, is an example from his 13-year-old daughter, who has produced an amazing workflow in the education sector around student retention. So democratization, you use that word, and it's an excellent word, Brian, but it really speaks volumes for empowering people to do that, to deliver those breakthroughs for the company that they work for and work with.
And Julian, where are you seeing the challenges and opportunities in the Asia Pacific region in this space? Because in some ways, if you go out of Australia and Hong Kong and Singapore, the rest of the region is kind of behind the curve a little bit. Yes.
I mean, the different countries are different stages of development. For example, in Japan, you typically still have IT-centric organizations, and there's what we call guided analytics. So IT is there on behalf of the business, looking at those workflows and implementing them. And that probably is partly hierarchical in terms of corporate structures and so on, which is changing.
Yeah, and
rapidly.
that's a culture related. We talked about that earlier. So that's a culture related thing, and it's hard to shake off.
Yes. And so, but having to move quickly because the pace of the business, is increasing all the time. And then you go to, frontier markets, which are newer into analytics, but moving very fast. I mean, they don't have the legacy. So they don't have the challenges that many businesses have around legacy technology in the analytics space, because, to do analytics at scale, I mean, when you've got legacy technology, there are something like 7 processes in the input stage and 7 different tools, which all have their associated overheads around training, development, the manual handoffs between this and that. Then there are about 5 in the center, and there are about 7 or 8 on the output stage. And when you put that together in the melting pot, that is adding complexity on top of complexity. So you could be in a country like Vietnam or Laos, and they're going straight from, they're leapfrogging because they don't have the legacy. They can go straight into a completely modern environment and take the very best analytics process automation platform.
Absolutely. And if you use Vietnam as an example, you have a very young, tech-savvy population. And as you said, they just leapfrog, and that's what they're doing across several different industries as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, Julian, looking ahead for Alteryx across the Asia Pacific region, what are your plans?
Well, when you're a market leader, what's really important is points of presence. The difference between a market creator and being a market leader is you need sustainability. You've got to make sure that you're present and the customers and partners are there to support our customers. So, the priority for us is to continue our expansion. We see huge upside and opportunity in all parts of Asia. And, there's this massive king tide around analytics, and all ships rise in the tide. And so we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on that with obviously our market leading solutions and together with our partners. And we're supported by a great network of partners throughout the region. We have about 140, and they can help our customers in all parts of the analytics journey, whether it's enablement, whether it's education, training, whether it's working on use cases, whether it's on the strategy piece, or indeed the implementation. But yeah, our goal is to continue expanding in this beautiful part of the world. And when you think about APJ as a region, huge consumers of technology, but also big producers of technology. whether it be on the hardware side, where you get embedded analytics coming into hardware, where you have new business models appearing, and it could be a company that's doing something incredibly innovative with analytics in the small to medium business space in a frontier market, for example. Obviously cloud is got its own. We talked about it from the early, about our early days coming into technology, but the advantage of cloud to be able to dial up capacity and accelerate that, is also fantastic. So we want to make sure that we're very much in Asia and across Asia and working with our customers day in, day out on their transformation projects and helping them with those big complex challenges.
Now, Julian, I want to zoom in on you right now. You've had a very long career as a leader in technology. Now, that's starting way back with your days with Unisys and Novell during Web 1.0. And now we're in Web 3.0. How has your management style evolved over the years?
Well, for me, leadership is. I came from originally a military background, and that taught me a lot. I was in the British Army for 6 years or so, and I suppose one of the things that's always put me in really good stead is I fundamentally believe in empowering others to act and lead in all parts of the business, and that begins by when you've got a market-leading product like we have, then all you need to do is retain top talent and acquire the very best talent you can, and you'll naturally scale the business. And in leading, for me, it's always about making sure that you empower others to act. And actually, I've always found that your leadership is strengthened by passing the baton over to others to do that. It doesn't disempower your leadership. It actually empowers you further and them. And my style has been always very much about that. And I always believe in collaboration and communication is obviously incredibly important. So communicating early and often. Bad news doesn't get any better for every day you delay, right? And there's never any good business in bad business. So operating to the very highest standards of conduct and behavior are incredibly important, because the brand you build externally and the brand you build internally are just as important. And I've always fundamentally believed in that. Is competition's a really healthy thing. I love competition because it keeps us on the front feet and front of foot all the time. So we should never be concerned about competition. We should embrace it in a very positive way. And that's kind of my leadership philosophy.
Now, Julian, any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with before we end this conversation?
Well, look, if you're new to the space of analytics, I would firstly encourage you, go on to Alteryx.com and then look at the community. There is examples there of whether you're a student, an educator, or in fact, in the process of changing your career, and you want to come into the analytics space and improve your market worth. There's a wonderful opportunity to do that. And in the community itself, of which there are 40,000 members in Asia alone, there are amazing examples from use in logistics through to the banks, and you'll see a plethora of use cases of people and businesses that are applying analytics to improve their business outcomes. So I would encourage your listeners and people watching this to go onto the Alteryx site and into the community itself. It's very powerful, and there's all sorts of fast-tracked tutorials you can go to. You can download the software. You can start using it tomorrow.
Now, Julian, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Julian Quinn, Senior Vice President Alteryx for Asia Pacific and Japan at Alteryx, on Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. This video will be on our various social media platforms as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.